Heal the world, make it a better place. Heal the world for you, for me, and the entire human race. That is what Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters we are all about. We heal the world, bring you all the topical health issues, and we educate you so that you can make informed decisions on your health. It is a beautiful afternoon here in the studios of Ɔdadeɛ Radio, and like we always do, we come, we educate you, we enlighten you, and we inform you, always throwing light, because in His light, we will always see light. The name is Dr. Anafo Awuni Godwin, and I'm already in my the studios with my guest. He's here with his son. I'll do the introductions later. We have our technical producer here, Mr. Otu, ably helped by Mr. Michael Ɔdadeɛ. Our executive producers are also giving us support from home. Ɔdadeɛ Edifiko, Ɔdadeɛ Zonda are also giving us all the support from home. My boss, Ɔdadeɛ Dr. Prince Samuel Nyama, is also pushing and encouraging us to continue to do the great work that we are doing. Last 2 weeks, we had actually discussed hypertension. Over the past weeks, we've been discussing a lot of conditions, mainly physical ailments, and how they affect, our communities, how they affect individuals. June in the USA is actually Men's Month. June is Men's Mental Health Month. And just this past Sunday, we celebrated World Father's Day. A day that is not really spoken about much as other days, like the Mother's Day and other things. We've therefore decided that today, we're going to be talking about men's health. And which part of it are we talking about? We're talking about men's mental health. So our topic is what? Mental health, a priority for men's health. We'll dig in deeper and then try to find out what the relationship is, what the link is, and what we can do to ensure that there's mental well-being for every man out there. So you're probably in your 20s. You're introduced to gambling. You won your first one, and you've been on it since. You want to stop, but it's really difficult. Or you're probably in your 30s, and you completed school about 5-6 years ago. You've been on a job hunt, trying everything, and it does not seem to be working. How are you feeling? How are you coping? Are you anxious? Are you sad? Are you depressed? That's something we're going to be talking about. Or you're probably in your 40s. You set up an enterprise about 10 years ago. You're hoping by now you would have kicked off and then you'd be one of the millionaires. Things do not seem to be going that way. There are probably marital issues as well. How are you feeling? What is your state of mind? These and many more we would be talking about on Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters. Let me go quickly to introduce our guest. Our guest is actually someone who's, I've known him for a very long time. He's more of an elder brother. We grew up in the same region. And he's been someone who is, how would I put it? He motivates, he encourages, and he's an activist for all sort of positive things. He's a psychiatrist with the Accra Psychiatry Hospital, and he's a strong and ardent advocate for mental health. I'm talking about Dr. E.A. Azusong. Dr. E.A. Azusong. You're welcome to Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters.
Thank you very much for having me here in Ɔdadeɛ Radio, and I'm pleased to be here with you.
Okay, he's not here alone, right? We are talking about mental health, men's mental health. I wanted to concentrate on just men's mental health, but the producers reminded me that men, we are always people who are selfless. We don't take things too personally. We don't take things and then we're not greedy. Okay, so we don't want us to also talk about general mental health. So even as we try to emphasize on mental health of men, we'll try as much as possible to include our wives, our mothers, our children, and everyone else. Yes, that is what we men do. So we are here with our son. Dr. Azusong is here with his son, Master Tyrone Azusong. Master Tyrone Azusong is currently in his second year of junior high school. The reason he came is because he has aspirations of joining Presec someday. And you know why? It is because when you attend a very good school, it also contributes to your mental health. Attending a good school in and of itself can improve your mental well-being. So, Master Tyrone Azusong, you're welcome to Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters.
Thank you very much.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself? I've already mentioned you in JSS2, but maybe you should confirm that for me. Are you really in JSS2?
Yes, please.
Okay, and what is the dream?
The dream is to attend Presec Legon because it is one of the best schools in Ghana.
One of the best schools. And the fact that you are choosing it actually means that it is the best school in Ghana, right?
Yes, please.
You are welcome. I mean, our doors are always open to you as long as you are willing to put in the work and attain the grades. Once you attain the grades and you have the good character, you come into Presec, we'll put you on a pedestal that no one can stop you from reaching your heights, right? So work hard, and then we'll see you in Presec someday. Hopefully, you'd also be leading the National Science and Maths quiz team, right?
Right.
Okay, all the very best to you. If you're just joining us, we are currently talking about mental health, a priority for men's health. I've already introduced our guest, who also came with his son. Our guest is Dr. E.A. Azusong, who is a psychiatrist and a clinical psychologist with the Accra Psychiatry Hospital. He's here with his son, Master Tyrone Azusong, currently in his second year of junior high school, with big dreams, very valid dreams of coming to Presec and being part of the quiz team. I mean, and like I was telling him, Presec is always open to everyone, regardless of creed, regardless of race. We have Muslims, we have Buddhists and all who come to this school, and they are given the right training to take their rightful places in the future of their country and the world for that matter. Let's get back to our topic, mental health, a priority for men's health, with Dr. E.A. Azusong. Dr. Azusong, you want to tell us what the E.A. stands for?
So the EA is Emmanuel.
Okay.
Atuesinya.
Atuesinya.
Yeah.
Atuesinya. What does Atuesinya mean?
Yeah, so the Atuesinya means experience.
Experience.
Yeah, you need to experience it and see how it is like. So it's stemming from the fact that if you really want to achieve, you experience, they say, is the best teacher. And so once you have an experience of it and you have learned it, then it will help you to be able to become the best of what you want to.
Certainly.
So Atuesinya. So like experience it and then see how it is like.
Experience it and see how it is like. Experience it and see how it is like. How about Azusong?
And Azusong simply means good luck,
good luck,
or favored. That's what the Azusong means.
Wow. You really have a lot of things going on well for you with regards to your name. Emmanuel, God with us, Atuesinya. Experience it and see His goodness. Yes. Experience the love of God and see His goodness.
Yes.
And there is
so if you look at the genealogy of the name, it actually starts from the experience it and see. Because my dad really went through a lot growing up, and being neglected by the family. And so when he gave birth to me, I was like, I want you to also experience this life and then see how life is difficult. But in as much as you are experiencing life's difficulty, may you go with good luck. And that's
God with you.
And then may God be with you as you experience all of these things.
Wow.
And so the Azusong originally wasn't my dad's surname. It was after I was born. The Azusong was given to me.
Wow.
Then later, my dad decided to use it as his surname as well.
That's a very impactful name. Very, very powerful name. We are glad that name has actually created it's made it possible for you to become who you are, contributing to society in such a big way as a psychiatrist and a clinical psychologist. Let's get to know a bit more. Since this is a high school radio station, we want to get to know which high school you attended, what the experience was like.
Yeah, so I went to Notre Dame.
Okay.
Notre Dame Minor Seminary and Senior High School, located in Navrongo.
Right.
It's an all-male, all-boys school.
Right. Just like Presec.
Yes, just like Presec. And so that's where I went to school. And my experience in school, while I was in school, I had fun. I enjoyed my school days.
Right.
And SS is always a time of having fun and then, being studious and all of those kind of things.
Right.
And I was also part of the Science and Maths quiz team.
Ooh.
Yeah, but then we were beaten out
the
quarter-final stage by Opokowari.
Oh, okay, it was.
Yes.
Should I say unfortunately or fortunately? Okay, yes, so fortunately. I don't know how to put it, but OWAS is actually more of a... I wouldn't even call us I wouldn't call them our nemesis. Each time we've met them, we give them a real run for their money. We always whoop them.
Yeah.
Right. So you can take solace in the fact that your son is going to attend a school that would always revenge and avenge your defeat, right?
Yeah, no problem.
That's good. That's good. Apart from the quiz team, were you involved in sports or anything like that?
Yes, so I played volleyball while I was in school, and I was also part of the school's health team.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
right.
basically, those were the things that I did.
Right.
And my school, whether you like it or not, at 4 p.m. everybody has to be on the field.
Right.
So if you're on the field, you either have to watch or you take part in the games. And it was volleyball that I took part in. That was where I learned how to play volleyball. And I still play volleyball up to this day.
Wow. You had a full experience. You certainly had a full experience. Right. Since we are still talking about men, just this past Sunday was World Father's Day. I want to know, you have a family. Can you tell us a bit about your family and how it is like being a man?
Yeah, so I'm married and
Right.
I have 3 children.
Right.
Yeah, it's not been easy, you know, and as a man sometimes I barely find myself at home, and also being in school, and it's really been very hectic.
Right.
But then I find solace in a very supportive partner and wife. I have Ruki Jane as a son who has been helping me.
A beautiful wife
Yeah.
at that. I've had the opportunity of meeting her.
Yes, yeah. So who has been helping me even if I'm not around? She takes care of the house and all of that. Yeah.
It's important to always get supportive, a very supportive partner. Can we get to know about your children, their names? We've already met Master Tyrone as this song.
Yes, Tyrone, my first boy.
Okay.
And then I have a girl after Tyrone, and then that's he's Tayami as a song.
Right.
And another boy, Apatiwe as a song.
Apatiwe as a song. So we have Tyrone, Tayamin, and Apatiwe, who are children to a very proud father in Dr. E.A. Azusong, a psychiatrist and a clinical psychologist with the Accra Psychiatry Hospital. Let's zoom straight to our discussion for today. Mental health, a priority for men's health. You know, when I was growing up, I mean, anytime I heard mental health, the very first thing that came to mind was the madman I knew in Bolga, John Bosco. Right? That's what I always thought about. That was mental health. I've come to know that it goes beyond that. You are the specialist in this area. What exactly is mental health?
Yeah, so just like health, mental health, when you talk about mental health, is a state of well-being.
Right.
And it's not necessarily the absence of disease. That is very key for us to understand. And when you talk about mental health in particular, WHO would define mental health as a state of well-being in which a person is able to cope with the normal stresses of life. So cope with the normal stresses of life and then contribute meaningfully to society.
Right.
And throughout this particular process, there are certain things that come into play in helping the person to be able to cope with the mental stresses of life. How the person thinks, how the person feels, and how the person behaves. Are all part of the things that come into play in affecting how you cope with the normal stresses of life and how you contribute meaningfully to society. So you say that somebody is in a good mental health if the person is coping right with the normal stresses of life and is also contributing meaningfully to society.
So first and foremost, it is not just the absence of disease. Secondly, it's the ability to cope with the normal stresses of life. I mean, stresses are part of life.
Yeah.
Right? So your ability to cope with them, not just coping with them, but being able to contribute meaningfully to society is what we call as good mental health or mental well-being. Right. So having gotten the definition out of the way, the fact that it's not just the absence of disease, I'm sure there are situations when we can have poor mental health, or let's just say we have mental health disorders or conditions. Right. I want to know how common poor mental health or mental health conditions or disorders are within our sub-region, especially in Ghana.
Yeah. So if you, in our sub-region, if you take 4 people, just like take four of us in the studio here, one person would have a mental health condition. Wow. And then, you know, if you take like, let's say 10 people, out of these 10 people, you have about 3 who would have very serious mental health conditions, which would require admission and inpatient care.
Right.
And so is that common? And that's for all mental health conditions in general.
Right.
And you are talking about these mental health conditions, and they vary. They vary from anxiety disorders, mood disorders. And when you talk about mood disorders, we are talking about depression and manic mania or manic episode.
Okay.
So we talk about mood. Everybody has a particular type of mood where you say that this particular mood should be euthymic or it should be within a normal range.
Right.
But you can have extremes of the mood.
Right.
So just like a number line where on one extreme is the depressive and then on the other extreme is mania.
Right.
So you have mood disorders, you have anxiety disorders, you have psychotic disorders,
right.
You have disorders of old age, which include the dementias.
Right.
We have disorders that affect children like
right.
ADHD,
right.
and all these other conditions too that I mentioned also do affect children as well.
Right.
Then we also have headaches, and a lot of people do not know that headaches are
mental
managed.
Health.
Yes,
right.
Headaches are managed at our facilities. There is a place that you have an interface where it is being managed by neurologists and also being managed by psychiatrists as well.
Clinical psychologists.
Yes. And there are various types of headaches: migrainous headaches, cluster type headache, tension type headache, and all. And
that's a lot of technical knowledge. Yeah. I mean, a lot of technical words in there. We'll try and then get Dr. Zusong to come back one of these days so that we'll tackle some of the key ones.
Yeah.
Right? So talking about the key ones, I would want to know, you've mentioned a lot of them: mood disorders, anxiety disorders, addictive disorders, and all. Which are the common conditions? What are the commonest ones amongst men in Ghana?
Yeah, so when you talk about the commonest one amongst men, you have substance uses. Substance dependence.
Right.
So in this substance dependence, most of the time it varies. It can be either alcohol, it can be cocaine, it can be cannabis, it can be nicotine.
Right. Right.
These are the conditions that are common amongst men. Then in men as well, you also have psychotic disorders.
Right.
The anxiety disorders are not as common in males as compared to in women.
But they are still present nonetheless.
Yeah, but they are still there in men.
Yeah.
Then if you take the mood disorders, the depressive disorders are more common among the females than the men.
Right.
But the manic disorders are equally prevalent.
Right. Okay. So we are talking about substance use disorders being one of the commonest conditions amongst males, right? And then we are also talking about mood disorders not being too common, albeit they are present. I mean, they are present amongst men, but commoner amongst females, right? What I would want to know, basically, is regarding some of these substance use disorders and then the mood disorders and then the anxiety disorders and all. You mentioned that the mood disorders aren't too common amongst males relative to females. Does that mean that there are particular risk factors that predispose a particular group of people or a particular individuals to developing mental health disorders relative to others? And what are some of these risk factors?
Yeah, so I said the mood disorders, you have two types.
Right.
So you have the manic ones and then the depressive ones.
Right.
The depressive ones are what is more common among the females.
Right.
But the manic ones are equally prevalent in both male and female.
Right.
But then there are risk factors that can predispose someone to getting a mental health illness. And in the mental health, most of the time, we during the history, we try as much as possible to tease out some of the things, the antecedent activities and antecedent things that might have happened before a person developed the condition.
Right.
So we would have the predisposing factors, we have the precipitating factors, then we have the perpetuating factors, and then we also have the protective factors.
Right.
The predisposing factors are those factors or those risk factors that were present before the person developed the illness.
Right.
The precipitating factors are more or less like the triggers. So they are the things that happen, then the illness manifests.
Okay.
And that is what the family would usually associate the illness to. So
although there may have been some predisposing
they may
factors.
have some predisposing factors.
Right.
So you can have a predisposing factor, like a genetic predisposition
right.
to getting depressed.
Right.
Or in your family, you had your dad who had schizophrenia. As a sibling, as an offspring of that person who has schizophrenia, you have between 13 to 16% chance of getting the condition. And so already you are vulnerable to getting the psychotic illness.
Right.
Then something happens. You are in senior high school, and then all of a sudden you lose a family member.
Right.
You lose your mom, you lose your dad, you're unable to write your exams, or you fail your exams. Then that particular thing would be a precipitating factor.
That was what tipped you off.
And that is what
the scale.
triggered. And that is what tipped you off into.
Right.
And that was why I was talking about to be in a good state of mental health. Then you should be able to cope
with
these stresses. So someone who can cope with this particular stressor, with the stressor of losing a mother, would bounce back.
Right.
To normal health. You may have a few periods where you'd be moody, you would cry, but then you would bounce back. But for people who have that predisposition, they are unable to cope with that particular stressor.
Right.
And because of that, they are unable to bounce back to their normal health.
Right.
And then they will then start having the symptoms.
Can you tell us some of these predispositions? I mean, some of these predisposing factors to most of the mental health conditions?
Yes. So for most of the mental health conditions, we have biological predisposing factors, which are they run in family.
Okay.
Then you also have social predisposing factors, which are things that generally happen, losses, and if you look at this, what we call the Holmes and Ra readjustment scale, and so it classifies all social events. So anything that you can think of. So for instance, losing a family, losing a job, losing your partner, getting sick, all of these things are social predisposition, or things that can predispose you to getting a mental illness.
Right.
So all of these ones are there.
Right.
And that is, then you also have people who take substances, who drink alcohol, people who take cannabis or all these ones.
Right.
The substances, we call them psychoactive substances because they act directly on the mind to make you think. Like, remember what I was telling you about the mental health and the processes that get involved in order for you to be in that state of in a state of well-being, in a state of a good mental health.
Right.
That interaction phase where you have how you think, how you feel, and how you behave.
Right.
So when you take the psychoactive substances, it affects how you think and can predispose
it alters reality.
It alters reality, right? Yeah, it alters reality and affects how you think and how you behave to certain things. So these are basically the predisposition factors, and they are varying depending on the particular condition.
Right.
But we do not, in mental health, we do not really have causative agents, just like in physical health, where you would say that somebody has gotten a malaria and it is because of a mosquito bite.
Right.
In mental health, it's actually very difficult for us to tease out.
Mainly because then it's an interaction of many things.
Exactly.
Personal issues, societal issues, biological issues. So it's an interplay of many things.
Of all of these
right,
things.
Right. That's great. I mean, you mentioned predisposing factors, precipitants. You also spoke about protective factors.
Yes.
I wouldn't want us to go there just yet. We'll talk about the protective factors at a point in time, right? Having spoken about these predisposing factors, you mentioned losses.
Yeah.
What it means that each and every one in this world has had losses at one point in time or the other. Men, we lose relatives, we lose our jobs, we lose our sources of income. There are losses almost every day, who basically means that everyone is at risk of developing a mental health problem. It's just that it depends on what stressor would tip you off that balance.
Exactly. And how you'll be able to cope.
Adjust.
and adjust to that particular stressor.
Right. So if you are just tuning in, this is Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters. We are discussing mental health, a priority for men's health. And we are here in the studios with Dr. E.A. Azusong and his son, Master Tyrone Azusong, who's been able to go into the details of what mental health is. It's not just being the absence of disease, but the fact that you being able to cope with the stresses of life and be able to contribute meaningfully to society. He's also mentioned some of the predisposing factors, losses. And from the discussion, what it just means is that each and every one of us is at risk of developing mental illness. So if you are listening or you are listening and thought, oh, this does not apply to me, it is high time you actually listened in carefully, because each and every one of us is at risk of developing what? A mental illness. Okay. I want us to go a bit further. There's someone out there that always wants to be in a good state of well-being with regards to, his mental state. He's trying to find out, how can I always identify the symptoms and the signs early so that I can seek help? So what are the common symptoms? What are the common signs, especially the incipient ones, the early ones, that anyone can look out for within themselves, and also family can look out for, so that at the earliest appearance of these, help can be sought?
Yeah. So, we spoke about the fact that someone there are various ranges of mental disorders.
Right.
And each of these mental disorders have their signs and symptoms.
Yeah.
And so you cannot really just speak out and say that when you see this in the person, then the person is, you understand what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And the symptoms vary, and they cut across a range of things, mostly affecting how the person feels, how the person thinks, and how the person acts. So those are the main things. But basically what I would want to say is that every one of us living in society and living in a family, we know how this particular person is.
Yeah.
Has his thinking processes changed?
Right.
Has he changed? Does he now think in ways that you think are unusual? In ways that you think are abnormal?
Right.
So like all of a sudden he's saying that, I think that God is speaking to me, and God speaking to me, he is telling me that I need to do this to this particular person.
Right.
I need to kill this person. Or God is telling me that I heard the voice of God when spoke to me in clear consciousness.
Right.
And that is what we would usually call a hallucination. And because it is in the auditory process, we will say that it's an auditory hallucination.
Okay.
So what basically happens is that they then sense and feel things that are non-existent.
Right.
They think in ways, or they think things that are not normal.
Can I make a distinction? Sorry to catch you. But a lot of Christians, you and I are Christians, right? Any atheist listening to us would probably say we have mental problems, mainly because we are not really able to readily prove the existence of God.
Yeah.
If someone were to ask us, can you show us God? We wouldn't be able to do that. Does that mean, showing belief in someone that does not seem to exist is a sign of mental illness?
That is a very good question.
Okay.
I earlier on spoke about the fact that this person is telling you that I am hearing God talk to me, and God is talking to me just like the way you are talking to me.
Okay. So like there's a
conversation. Previously, it wasn't like that.
Right.
Previously, we knew you. You were not this type of person. But all of a sudden, this is what has happened. Or in the 3 months past, this is what is happening to you.
Right.
We knew who you were. We knew your aspirations. We knew the kind of job you were doing.
Right.
But then this time around, you tell me that the CIA is after you. And we know that you are living in a corner in Kolegono or somewhere in Kolebu. And then even the BNI in Ghana do not even care about your existence.
Right.
Then you all of a sudden say that the CIA is after you. They have put a bag in my head and they are monitoring me and following me everywhere I go.
Right.
Some of these things may in reality be true. But then you look at the kind of person who is saying it and what he is saying, the weight of what he is saying.
And they don't tally.
And it doesn't tally.
Yeah.
And so that is what we usually talk about, a delusion. But when we say somebody is having a delusion, it must be in the context of the person's culture and society.
Right.
And so we will define a delusion as a false belief, but sometimes it is not always false. Like you say that aliens are after you. My family is after me. It is not always false.
Right.
But it's sometimes false. It is implausible.
Right.
Despite the fact that you have given the person evidence to show that what you are saying is not plausible,
Right.
the person still stands on that particular conviction that yes, indeed, CIA is after me. And that is what we usually talk about, the delusions.
Right.
Then you can have other ones like person feeling sad, being moody and crying, all of a sudden cannot eat, all of a sudden is unable to sleep, all of a sudden is having headaches. You know, all these other things coupled with a host of, like I said, the mental health disorders are so numerous that each disorder has its particular symptoms and signs. But the key to noticing if somebody has a mental illness is that, is this how the person was a few weeks ago?
So there's an alteration in behavior,
alteration
in thoughts,
in the person's thought. There's an alteration in how the person feels.
Right.
The sensation.
Right.
And the sensation is in the 5 senses.
Right.
So I can hear voices that other people who are in the room
cannot hear
the voice.
Right.
So you tell me that Akufo-Addo is talking to me right now. But Akufo-Addo talking to me right now, I can hear it in my ears that Akufo-Addo is talking to me.
Right.
But you cannot hear that Akufo-Addo is talking to me. That is a disorder. You can see things in this particular room. You are seeing a man walking in this particular room. Yet we are both in this room. And yet you cannot see.
Right.
In the sense of vision.
Right.
You are smelling.
So any alteration in the senses,
any alteration in the senses, you can feel something walking crawling on your skin, crawling underneath your skin, tactile hallucinations.
Right.
So any alteration in your sense of feel, right, in all the senses, and then an alteration in your behavior.
Right.
We know that this is how you used to behave. You wear this particular types of shirts, you dress in this particular way, but then all of a sudden you have decided to dress more flashily. If it's a lady, the person is putting on more makeup, putting on more things with color. If it's a man, the person is putting on more blinks, and then says that.
So even a sudden change in how you dress can often be an incipient sign.
Exactly. You understand?
Right.
So what the take home for listeners is a change.
A change.
In a person's thoughts. A change.
Especially towards the negative, because I mean someone could always change towards the positive.
Towards the positive.
Right.
You understand what I'm trying to say. And so this one, you are telling me that, I am wearing these chains because I think that I am Burna Boy. I'm wearing these chains because I think that I am Jay-Z.
Right.
Or I am a millionaire.
Right.
And I have this amount of money in the bank. Yet we know you and we know how much you are worth. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Right.
Then, this. If you look at this can be more or less like somebody would say that it's a positive change because now the person is dressing more nicely, wearing flashy colors,
having a positive
outlook on life. But it may be a sign of a mental illness.
And it's not even tallying with reality.
It's not even tallying with reality. It may be mania. You understand? Then in the other way, you have this person who all of a sudden says that I don't need to wear clothes.
Right.
You know, the person becomes started. I don't need to keep my hair clean because God tells me that I shouldn't keep my hair. The person is not bathing. You understand? The person walks and waves at everybody.
Right.
The person is walking and does not talk to anybody in the house.
Right.
Behavior.
So the extremes, even the extremes of behavior.
You understand what I'm trying to say? This is behavior, but this behavior is unusual of the person.
Right.
It's unusual of the person. One of the things I didn't talk about is the fact that another example of mental disorders is personality disorders. People may have their personalities, but certain personalities are classified as disorders.
Right.
And I'm sure because of time, we may not want to go into.
Well, I mean, we'll call you back one of these days for us to go into the details of some of these. But basically, the message is quite clear. Any alteration in the behavior, in the thoughts, in the speech, in the actions of someone that you know should always be a red flag, should always be something that should make you probe a bit further to find out if this could be early stages of a mental illness or a mental disorder. Right. I mean, there isn't much time for us to go into the details, but I can see there's a lot you want to tell us with regards to this. But basically, be looking out for your friends, be looking out for your family. If there's any alteration, try to find out why this is happening so that you can seek further help if need be. Now, Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters has actually been talking about a lot of physical conditions. We've been talking about diabetes, cancers, hypertension, and all. The question I want to find out is there a relationship between mental health and physical health? Does having a poor mental health in any way contribute towards having bad physical health? Talking about hypertension, diabetes, or anything of that sort.
Yeah, there's a very clear link between mental illness and physical illness.
Right.
So we are talking about mental health being a person's ability to cope well with stresses.
Right.
Someone who is not coping well with the person's stresses is likely to either eat more,
right?
Is likely to either eat junk. The person is likely to say that I am no more going to eat and will skip meals.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
And eating junk, eating more can predispose the person to obesity, and the person getting hypertension and diabetes and the like. On the flip side, the person saying that now I'm no more going to eat can this predispose the person to getting wasted, can predispose the person to other
malnutrition and
all of those kind of things. You understand?
Right.
And we talk about a mental illness of, like, let's say, an eating disorder, where the person has anorexia nervosa. The person is not eating enough calories to meet the demands of the body.
Right.
This can break the body down to the extent that you can get heart failure. It can break the person down to the extent that the person gets a kidney failure. So these are very, very clear links to it.
Right.
Then the other thing too is that most of the predispositions to mental illnesses, they are multifactorial.
Right.
And these predispositions can also predispose to other physical illness. So someone who is predisposed to schizophrenia is maybe predisposed also to hypertension and maybe predisposed to diabetes. So there is a very clear link.
Yeah.
In addition to that, when you take some of our mental illness, the conditions, some of the medications for the treatment of mental illnesses, some of them have side effects that can lead to physical conditions.
Right.
But then it is always better to have that, and because you are in the hospital, we know how we are going to manage and to reduce these physical complications of the mental illness. So yes, indeed, there is a very clear link to that.
Yes, that's. I mean, some of the mood disorders they had actually mentioned have also been found by research to lead to hypertension. So, for example, unusual levels of stress, depression have all also been shown to lead to other physical ailments like hypertension. And I think on the flip side too, this is also true. The fact that physical health, you had already mentioned that loss of health in and of itself is a predisposition to developing hypertension, can even be a precipitating factor to developing mental illness.
And as a matter of fact, if you go into the general hospitals and go into the wards, 30% of people who are on admission have depression.
Wow.
That's quite high.
Wow.
And it's just because the underlining is the fact that they are physically unwell. A lot of people who have cancer have psychiatric illnesses.
Right.
A lot of people who have HIV have psychiatric illnesses.
Right.
So it is very common, and there is an area in psychiatry, a whole subspecialty in psychiatry called liaison psychiatry or consultation psychiatry,
right,
where we the focus is on people who have who have medical illnesses with comorbid psychiatric illness.
Right.
You know, and some even physical conditions by themselves would manifest first of all with psychiatric symptoms. So you talk about somebody having SLE, you talk about somebody having multiple sclerosis. The first symptom that you may see may not even be a physical sign, but it may be a mental sign, a psychiatric symptom.
Right. So the message is pretty clear. If you're wondering why mental health has to be a priority for men's health, it is right here. The information is out there. I mean, men are predisposed to getting hypertension, they are predisposed to getting diabetes, they are predisposed to getting cancers. And as it has already been established by our specialist, Dr. E. Azusong here, mental illnesses can often predispose to these physical conditions, and these physical conditions can also predispose to mental illness. So yes, there's a clear link between these two. And it is the reason mental health has to be a priority for men's health. I'm sure erectile dysfunction, for example, has a link with mental health, because I know how important performance in bed is to men. So if they are unable to do that, then it's probably going to lead them towards depression and all. Right? And even being depressed, I'm sure, can also lead to erectile dysfunction.
And as a matter of fact, so when you talk about erectile dysfunction, the causes of erectile dysfunction, 70% of the causes of erectile dysfunction are psychological.
Wow.
You know, 70% of all causes of erectile dysfunctions
are psychological.
Yeah.
So if you want to perform in bed, it is very important that you keep your mental health intact. That is the message from our psychiatrist and clinical psychologist here. If you do not want to suffer the effects of erectile dysfunction, take your mental health as a priority. And having read some literature, I think there's this effect. It's called the Rosetto effect, right? So it is actually a study that was conducted in the, if I'm not mistaken, late 50s, early 60s amongst Italian Americans in America in a community known as Rosetto. What they found out was that there was a researcher who conducted research. In that time, heart attacks were actually a pandemic. Sorry, I should say an epidemic, right? But this community, a closely knit group, they were Italian Americans. They ate all the junk food, were inactive, were sedentary, they smoked, did all engaged in all the unhealthy behaviors. But heart attacks were very minimal, very few. Cases were few and far between amongst them, and they were wondering what exactly this was. It turned out that these people's mental health was pretty intact. And it all came from the fact that there was a closely knit group with a sense of community, a sense of cohesion, and just the fact that their mental health, they had, mental well-being. They were spared the scourge of, other physical ailments like hypertension and heart attack. So the link is very clear. And the topic for today is also very clear, that if you want to have good physical health, then you need to prioritize your mental health. We have been talking about mental health here on Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters, live on Ɔdadeɛ Radio. You're probably listening to us via our Zeno FM app, which you can download from the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store. We're also live streaming this on Facebook and on YouTube. You can also interact with us on our various social media handles. On Instagram, we are at Ɔdadeɛ Radio. On Facebook, we are at Ɔdadeɛ Radio or at Ɔdadeɛ Radio Ghana. And on Twitter, we are Ɔdadeɛ Radio. So you can drop by, send us a message, send us some comments, some questions, and we would answer them. Of course, if you don't want to call or send a message, the number is 02000 92925. I'll take the number again, 02000 92925. Our studio phone line is 030-255-1014, 030-255-1014. This is Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters, where we enlighten you on all the topical health issues. We want to go on a quick commercial break to acknowledge our sponsors. When we return, there's more for you. Don't touch the dial. We would be right back.
At Ɔdadeɛ Radio. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Ɔdadeɛ Radio. You can WhatsApp or call us on 0200 092925.
Starting or building a dream business in Ghana as a diasporan can be difficult. No one prepares us for this journey, and so we make costly business mistakes and decisions along the way. But that doesn't have to be your experience anymore, so says Edubia Yisi, founder of Edubia & Associates. Join other diasporans and register for a Dubian Associates Business Readiness Masterclass for diasporans. 5 insightful business mentoring sessions to prepare you to start and build your dream business in Ghana. It's happening on the 10th of June 2023 from 8 a.m. to 12 noon at Serenity House, Ghana for 350 Ghana cedis. Limited seats are available, so reserve your spot via WhatsApp on 054 477 5660 and register now. Thank you and see you soon.
What does the Bible say? And what sort of light does it throw on any life-related issue? John chapter 1 verse 5 states, "And the light shineth in darkness, and darkness comprehended it not." Light for Life is a Christian panel discussion program on all life-related issues and how the Bible helps us in its day-to-day application. Beloved, my name is Reverend Gordon Kwashi, and I invite you to join me and my guests on the Light for Life program on Ɔdadeɛ Radio Online this and every Sunday from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. I trust that as we engage in this Light for Life program, we'll all be able to say to our God, "In thy light we shall see light." God richly bless you as you tune in.
I don't know what I would do without him. Whom shall I fear?
Agriculture plays a crucial role to our country's development with a huge contribution to Ghana's GDP whilst providing for our food needs at the same time.
They should know that agric is the backbone of every country. Honestly, you began by giving us the percentages, but it used to be 70% that agric contributes to the economy. It's because of certain lapses that has made a figure decline.
I don't know why they see farming as a bad occupation, because in other developed countries, they take agric very seriously and they make a lot of money out of farming. They use a lot of modern technology to improve their yield, but over here we only see it as the use of certain man-made or small implements such as cutlass and hoe, which don't really do much. If you want to go into mass production, which will bring you a lot of money, you use a lot of modern technology that will help improve the yield.
Time to put the spotlight on agriculture value chain in Ghana on Agric Panorama on Ɔdadeɛ Radio. Agric Panorama is a radio program that is aimed at creating a unique platform for all farmers, traders, processors, transporters, wholesalers, and all other actors within the agric value chain. Agric experts, policymakers, students in agriculture, and other stakeholders as they participate in a panel discussion to unravel all that matters to improve agriculture and agribusiness sector, which is the backbone of Ghana's economy.
It's beneficial to the country in the sense that the non-companies in this country, the products these companies bring out are from agric, or the raw products are from agric, which has been processed into finished goods.
With agric, as I was coming, I wanted to do biology, but my grandfather was the person who told me that, why don't you try agriculture? Because I'm a farmer, and look at where I am. So you can also try agriculture, and then you can see how far you'll go.
Agric Panorama will be broadcast live from the studios of Ɔdadeɛ Radio Online every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. You can listen and contribute to this program via the Zeno FM radio app or Ɔdadeɛ Radio app from the Google Play Store or App Store. Also watch it live on YouTube or Facebook at Ɔdadeɛ Radio or Ɔdadeɛ Radio Ghana. Ɔdadeɛ Radio, shine the light.
All right. Welcome back to Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters. This is the Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters. We are talking about mental health live here in the studios of Ɔdadeɛ Radio, and we have been talking about mental health as a priority for men's health. In this month of June, where we celebrate fathers, it's only imperative, it's only necessary that we talk about ways we can improve the health lot of our men within our society. And right here in the studios with us is a psychiatrist and a clinical psychologist with a keen interest in advocacy for mental health, currently working with the Accra Psychiatry Hospital. He's been educating us on mental health. He's speaking about the various disorders, mood disorders, personality disorders, addiction disorders, and all. He's spoken about the fact that the main symptoms, because these symptoms are many and they cut across, it's often difficult to mention just one symptom. But what you need to understand is that any alteration in the person's behavior, away from what they would usually do, any alteration in their thought process, any alteration in their attitudes, in their thinking, should always be a red flag and signal you to try to find out more. He's also mentioned the fact that there's an interplay, direct link between physical conditions, physical ailments, and mental health, where mental health can lead to physical conditions and physical conditions can lead to mental health. Worthy of note and of repetition is the fact that he mentioned that 70% of individuals who come with erectile dysfunction usually have a mental or a psychological disorder as the predisposing factor. Dr. Zusong, let's get back straight to the discussion. You had mentioned predisposing factors, precipitating factors. You also mentioned protective factors. So we want to find out, having identified that every one of us is at risk of developing mental illnesses and mental health disorders, what are some of the practical lifestyle measures or practical habits that each one of us can adopt as individuals at risk of developing mental illnesses in order to reduce this risk and enjoy some good well-being in regards to mental health?
Yeah. So in fact, I would want to say that the road to good mental health is baseline physical health.
Right.
So if you need to be mentally healthy, then physically you must be what?
Physically healthy.
Physically healthy.
Right.
And so a sound mind obviously is in a sound body.
Right.
But if the body is not sound, then obviously the mind is also not going to be sound.
Right.
So we talk about all these general, healthy lifestyle practices,
right,
where I would not want to. I know listeners and everybody already knows that you need to have good balanced diet, you need to have some physical exercise,
right,
you need to engage in some amount of healthy lifestyle activities,
right,
and abstain from unhealthy activities like drinking excessively, smoking cannabis, and smoking
tobacco,
all
nicotine,
of these other things,
shisha.
Exactly.
Right, because you mentioned these are psychoactive substances.
Psychoactive substances. Then I spoke about the protective factors in mental health.
Right.
Basically, these are some of the things that you can do that would more or less like protect you from getting a mental health condition. So they are classified into, we have the individualized ones,
right,
we have the institutionalized ones, and then we have the general ones. So as an individual, the individual's personality, how is your personality like? Are you resilient? Are you the type of person who is able to get a difficulty and bounce back
from it?
That's the resilience. And so when you come to the institution, what we usually do psychologically is to try to help you build the resilience, is to try to help you gain that sense of agility and malleability.
Right.
That is basically what we will try to help you with. Then you also have family support.
Right.
We have financial resources, because you need enough money. If you are not eating well, you don't have money to go and eat. And obviously, you are not going to be in a good state of mental health.
Yeah.
Then you have the other ones that happens in the family. Good relationship with people in the family, good family dynamics,
right,
with every other person in the family. Then social support,
right,
from even the family and from the community. You have a community in which you can go out and release some stress.
Yeah.
You know, by playing football with the community, you are contributing meaningfully to the community.
Right.
You are engaging in something that is meaningful.
Right.
Because when you go out, you know that you are going to impact a life. Impacting that life, don't forget, you are impacting your life as well. And so most people who impact lives, you will realize that they have what? Good mental health.
So these are some of the protective factors.
Some of the protective factors, and some of the things that when we do, it would help us decrease our risk of attaining mental disorder.
So a very good interpersonal relationship with family, with friends, with the community is a key protective factor for reducing one's risk of developing some of these mental health disorders. And it plays back to this Rosetta effect we were talking about, where that sense of community, that sense of cohesion often led to individuals having lesser risk of developing physical ailments. This plays back to mental health again. wonderful. So if you want to protect your mental health, it is important that you develop resilience. I mean, it's not everyone who has the type A personality. That regardless, having a closely knit social group, being able to interact and contribute positively to society are some of the ways you can protect yourself against some of the mental illnesses that continue to bother and plague many individuals within our society. Having spoken about the protective factors and what we can do as men to reduce our risk, I don't know if we can talk about, stress. Already we've mentioned that stress is part of life. Men as breadwinners, as people who need to go out there with a lot of responsibility. Is there anything you can talk in relation to that, especially with these very difficult socioeconomic times? Is there anything you have to say with regards to that that can help us?
When you talk about stress, we have mainly 3 types of stresses.
Right.
We have the daily hassles, we have the chronic stresses,
right,
and then we have the very acute stresses. So the daily hassles are you're going to buy your watch and you are queuing and the person is delaying. Somebody asks, you know that you are the next person in line, but the person ahead of you is buying for 10 people. Something like that can make you even anxious and can be a stress-inducing activity. Then you also have the chronic stresses like working and spending a lot of time at work, not sleeping early, and all of these things. Science has shown that all of these contribute to very cellular changes, molecular and biological changes
at the very lowest level
of
the human body.
That may not be very significant immediately, but it will be significant when accumulated over a period of time. Then you have the acute stresses, which comes in with regards to the losses I was talking about, the losing your job and the losing your partner and all of these other things. So all of these stresses, when put together for over a period of time, apart from the acute stresses where when they hit you directly. And those ones, as you know, we know that once you get into let's say somebody gets even a broken heart. The reason why it is called a broken heart is because your heart literally is actually broken, because you have norepinephrine and these things that are released immediately that would cause pain in your heart, and you can feel it.
So these are chemicals.
Exactly. But at the cellular level, science has shown us that there are chemicals that are released when someone is not happy. That when someone's partner immediately leaves the person, and it is something that you are not expecting. And so if you get, for instance, a death that is unexpected, the way it is going to hit you is going to be different from if somebody is terminal and you know that the person is likely to die. So broken heart is actually real. And in medicine we call it what? Takuchubo what? Cardiomyopathy. And so it is real. They are very how do I call it? Real physical changes that occur to you. And so my dose, I would usually put it as my dose for maintaining and coping with stressors is, first of all, once the person wakes up as men, you need to pray. Right? Prayer helps you tune and to set the tone for the day. In some people who you may decide not to even pray, but the mere fact that once you wake up, you take 5 minutes or 10 minutes of your time to just plan your day ahead mentally. Some people would write it down. Others, at least, you should know that when you are done with this is what you are going to do next, this is what you are going to do next. It gives you a good mental picture of what you are going to expect. And once you do that, some of the things that you are going to expect, you would know that this particular thing is likely to be a challenge. So if in the middle of the day it happens and you are getting that challenge, because you expected a challenge, it will hit you not as bad as someone who didn't expect something like that. Then you need to, would always advise men that once you wake up, it's important that you do some physical exercise, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, to help kickstart your day. And then you have a good balanced diet. You make sure that you have planned your day very well. Then you have planned, and then you move on with your life. In the middle of the time, you get a very good lunch. Then you come back. Enough sleep is very important. You need to go back to bed to reset your mind, because sleep is not just for only the body, but sleep is for the mind,
Right.
and sleep is also restorative.
Right.
From all the things that have happened, you need to get enough sleep in order to restore your energy, to restore your mental wellness back to default settings, so you can continue with the day.
Right.
So basically, that would be my prescription for managing
some
stresses.
of the stresses that we have in life. Of course, these are inevitable; they will always be part of us. But the ability to manage them well and be able to cope with them and then contribute meaningfully, that leads to mental well-being. Right. Okay, having spoken about some of the lifestyle measures we can adopt, I want to know, what are the treatment options? I don't know if in the advanced world the treatment options are more, but what are the treatment options in Ghana for people with various mental issues?
In fact, 10 years ago and now, mental health in Ghana has progressed so steadily.
Right.
We had less than 10 psychiatrists. Now, we can boast of at least 70 psychiatrists in the country.
Wow.
That's very important, and that's a significant progress. And same with the other mental health workers, like the clinical psychologists, the mental health nurses, psychopharmacists, and all of these other. The numbers have increased. The management modalities for most of the mental illnesses are psychosocial, and so we would usually look at the biological component, where we may give you medications, we may ask you to do some labs. In addition, the biological management also includes some innovative treatments, like what we call ECT. ECT is electroconvulsive therapy, where we would induce a seizure in a person. You understand? But under healthy and controlled conditions in order to prevent injuries. Then we also have TMS, that's transcranial magnetic stimulation, which occurs right here in Ghana. For biological, all these are available.
So it's not
in
just
management.
Getting the medications.
No, it's not just getting the medications.
Getting injections.
And all of those things. And
there's more.
As a matter of fact, I would want people to also understand that mental health, we need to remove that stigma from the stigma associated with mental health, that if you go into the psychiatric hospital, it means that anybody can get sick, just like anybody can get typhoid. You can be walking across the road and then you'll be hit by a car and then you get a fracture. All of us are
at risk.
Then we have the psychological management, which usually includes talk therapy or psychotherapy, and this psychotherapy, it varies. It is not the same as, when we say talk therapy, it's not the same as going to sit down and somebody talks to you. It's not the same. Depending on the condition, there are various ways in which the talk process would be done and would be formulated. Then we also have the social therapy, where we talk about the rehabilitation, engagement in occupational therapy, engagement in support groups like Alcoholic Anonymous, Narcotic Anonymous, and then all these other things. So these are the various modalities of management of psychiatric conditions.
Right. So the options are varied. There are many and readily available. So if you are stressed out or you have any mental illness or whatsoever it may be, the Accra Psychiatry Hospital is readily there for you. The Kolibu Teaching Hospital also has a psychiatry department. Pantang has a psychiatry department. That leads me to another question. You were talking about the stigma. I don't know, is there a reason psychiatric hospitals had to, some of them had to be taken away from general hospitals? Because that may in and of itself cause someone to, develop some sort of stigma. The fact that an illness, a particular illness, has its own separate hospital. Why isn't it integrated into main hospitals? And do you think by integrating into main hospitals, the stigma could be solved?
Yes, so I would come to that, but I would want to give you a background of a history of how psychiatric hospitals started. When it started, during the time of Philippe Pinel, they thought that psychiatric illnesses were as a result of spiritual. We've been a long way from that time onwards. Then, so when it happens like that, the people were usually isolated and put in asylums.
When they actually needed to be integrated.
When they actually needed to go to hospitals.
Right.
At the time, they were not even going to hospitals. They felt that the people were dangerous, and so because of that, let us keep them somewhere. A place that is not a prison because they have not committed a crime.
Yeah.
But because of their mental illness and the fact that they are perceived to be dangerous.
Right.
They are placed somewhere, and they were not receiving medical treatment for it.
Right.
Then it moved from that onwards to in the days of the Salpêtre in France, where they started institutionalizing them and providing them with some form of care.
Right.
And that is how come now they converted a lot of these ones into hospitals.
Okay.
So that is how come psychiatric hospitals were separated from the main hospitals.
Right.
You understand what I'm trying to say? Because they converted a place where they were keeping them
to a
just
hospital,
for safety.
A place for treating and managing
They converted those facilities that were already available into places of treatment.
Okay.
But now, the goal now is integration into the main facilities. And that is how come now you have hospitals like Kolebu that have a psychiatric department, and then most regional hospitals have a psychiatric unit, and then all of these things. So really, there's no reason why it is. The reason is because those facilities were already in existence, so they converted them into treating facilities, and that is how the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, for instance, came about, because it was built in 1904. And commissioned, and commissioned in 1906 as an asylum, and it was at the time called Christian Bock Asylum because of the Christian Bock Castle on the castle road. So that was how it got its name. Then finally we were
able to change it into an institution for managing, not just for segregating them from community.
Exactly.
Right. On that note, I would want us to get to know more. There are individuals who may probably not want to go get help in the hospital, right? Even for other conditions, even for hypertension or even physical ailments, there are people who do not like the hospital setting. Do we have, should I say, community and non-institutionalized care for mental health patients in Ghana? Are there agencies or are there opportunities for individuals to seek mental health care without having necessarily to go to the institutions?
Yes. So Accra Psychiatric Hospital, for instance, we have the comprehensive home care services, of which I am the leader of that particular team.
Right.
And so for people who do not want to come into the hospitals, you just call the hospital, we will come to your home and give you VIP treatment.
Right.
And for some people who, for one or whatever reason, say that I am not sick and don't want to go to the hospital, the relatives have tried, but the person is refusing to go to the hospital, you call us. We will come and take the person to the hospital. And so these are some of the things that we do. So it is not a problem at all. It's not a challenge. All you just need to is to place a call.
How about, you mentioned the fact that community support is very key in managing some of these mental health conditions. Are there arrangements for such things where you involve the community, where there's community involvement in the management of these patients, especially with regards to integration, getting patients who've already been treated back? Beyond that, so if there are individuals who do not want to get the kind of psychiatric help, or even if they want to, you feel that it's still at the early stages, is there a possibility of, there being community trained individuals or ways to be able to help these people out without them necessarily having to need the help of a psychiatrist or trained professional?
It's not that without they necessarily having to need the help of a psychiatric professional. No, you need a psychiatric professional to treat psychiatric conditions. You don't need a non-psychiatric professional to treat a psychiatric condition.
Right.
And so once they are usually treated in the hospital, there is a process of reintegrating them into the communities.
Okay.
And we have our community psychiatric nurses who usually help with that.
Right.
We also have the social workers who usually help with the reintegration process.
Mm.
And that was what I was talking about with the social harm
Right.
of the management of psychiatric conditions, where we are talking about the rehabilitation and reintegrating into the communities.
Yeah.
So it's very important here.
Right. We have a lot of questions that we need to talk about. This is still Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters live here in the studios of Ɔdadeɛ Radio. We are talking mental health, a priority for men's health. And in the studio with us is a psychiatrist and a clinical psychologist with the Accra Psychiatry Hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Atuesinia Azusong. Together with his son, Master Tyrone Azusong, we've been discussing and dissecting mental health as a priority for men's health in this month of June, where we celebrate men, especially the Father's Day, right? We are trying to ensure that our fathers have good mental health so that they'll be able to function, they'll be able to cope with the stresses of life, and they would be able to contribute meaningfully to their families, to the society, to the country, and the world for that matter. There are a lot of questions, honestly. Unfortunately, time is not really on our side, so I'll just go to some of the questions that have been sent to us via our WhatsApp number. Would ask Dr. Zusong to explain and give us some answers to them, and then later we'll call him for the remainder of the questions. There's so much we need to discuss, talking about stigma, some of the hindrances to health, mental health care in Ghana, and all. There are so many, and of course delving into the details and nitty-gritties of some of the common conditions. We'll definitely invite him to come back and then discuss that. But let's go straight to our WhatsApp line to answer some of the questions. Right, this is coming from Mr. Kwesi. What's the name? Mr. Kwesi Boampong. Okay, so he wants to know. The link between marijuana use and association with mental health problems. Is there any association? Is there any link? Because I have actually had this discussion with a colleague doctor who thought that marijuana did not in any way influence mental health conditions. Is there a link between the use of marijuana and mental health conditions?
So, very important there. There is a link.
Right.
When you talk about marijuana is a psychoactive substance.
Okay. And meaning, can you break that down?
So when I say a psychoactive substance, what it means is that it's a mind influencing.
Right.
Mind influencing
substance.
It
has effects on the mind.
It has effects on the mind.
Right.
I hope you understand what I am saying by it being psychoactive, it being mind influencing.
Right.
And so, but we have some people who are predisposed to mental illnesses.
Right.
And so when you take the marijuana, what marijuana does is that it increases dopamine in your system.
Right.
And dopamine, excessive dopamine in your system, on the cellular level, is what causes you to have psychosis.
Right.
And so when you take the marijuana to a particular level, you would begin to see things that are not existent. Or you begin to believe in things that are not true.
Right.
And that's where the psychosis bit of it. But it's not everyone who takes the marijuana that is tipped into the psychotic zone.
But increases the risk.
Right. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So certain people have a biological genetic gene. Right. That change in their genetic component that makes them susceptible to the effect of marijuana, the psychotic effect of marijuana.
Right.
Other people, however, do not have that, and so when they take the marijuana, you will not see them having.
You may not
see them having psychotic symptoms.
Right.
Then again, people who already have psychotic illness, let's say that they have schizophrenia, it's been shown that some of them take the marijuana in order to be able to abolish or stop the effects of the substance of the medications that are being given to them. You understand what I'm trying to say?
So the medications basically try to
block the dopamine.
Okay.
You understand? That's what the medications do. So they are antipsychotics. So they are dopamine antagonists.
Right.
Mainly on the D2 receptor. D2 receptors.
Right.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
Right.
So you give the person the D2 receptor, so the person may become even weak and sullen.
Okay. So initially they were very, aggressive,
active,
overly active,
and all of those
so
kind
you
of
try
things.
to suppress that
Exactly.
to normal levels,
To
what
normal,
you call the euthymic levels.
Yes, to normal levels,
Right.
and basically that is what we do. That does not take away the fact that marijuana is it helps people to relax. It helps people, increases their sense of confidence, and all of those things. So yes, there is a clear link between marijuana and psychotic illness.
Right. Okay, this question is also coming from a queer Aminata. Okay, so she's asking a question about I think she's probably someone in the psychiatric space. What your thoughts are on the recent decriminalization of suicide in Ghana? Right.
Yeah. So if you take for every 3 out of 4 people who have committed suicide have a mental illness. Every 3 who have committed suicide have a mental illness.
Wow.
So you tell me that it is a law that a lot of us in the mental health space didn't even understand why it is in existence.
Right.
You tell me that you have come to hospital because you had a motor accident.
So you should be killed.
So you should be arrested. And put in prison because you are riding motor and you had an accident.
Right.
No.
When you are actually riding within the limits of the law.
You understand what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So people who are suicidal, majority of them have psychiatric illness.
Right.
And when we did a research that was done to find out the prevalence of mental illness among people who had suicidal attempts, it was found out that 90% of people who committed suicide and had suicide attempts, 90% of them actually did have
a mental
health disorder. So it is that prevalent. And so if you are suicidal, you start having suicidal ideas, the place to go to is the hospital. That is where you have to go to.
Of course.
And nobody, take note, it is suicide. Before a person commits suicide, there is usually a smoke.
Right.
The person would start, the behavior and the thinking process would change. But if the family take note of this, then you would avert it even before it becomes a suicidal act.
Right.
And so suicide is considered to be a continuum from suicidal ideas. You understand?
All the way to the carrying out of the activity.
Suicidal plan.
Right.
The organization of it. Then before you have the suicidal attempt and the completing the suicide itself. And so nobody just gets up and commits suicide. Although in a minority of them you have the impulsive acts. But these impulsive acts, there has been something that was even brooding before. And so you will notice that. So we are all happy, and we actually celebrated it when suicide was decriminalized.
That's a very good one. Thumbs up to the legal system for doing this. Something that we in the medical space, especially in the psychological and psychiatric space, had been advocating for and agitating for. We are glad and we are grateful that this has finally been decriminalized, and only serves to enhance and to improve the well-being of many Ghanaians. We are hoping and we are praying and encouraging all other countries that have criminalized suicide to follow suit in decriminalizing it. Right. Our next question, I think because of the marijuana question, someone's also asking, has marijuana been found to be protective against mental illnesses? People are looking for...
No. Marijuana is not protective. When you take marijuana, it doesn't protect you from getting mental illnesses. It only increases your risk of getting mental illnesses.
Yeah, so you've heard that it's not protective. If you are looking for an excuse in order to go get some marijuana, please. It is not protective against mental illnesses. Our penultimate question. I want to know, you've mentioned the fact that mental well-being is actually an interplay between biological factors, individual factors, social factors, environmental factors, national factors for that matter. So we wouldn't want to just target the individual factors and the biological factors alone. So what role can members of society, civil society organizations, the government and others do in order to promote the well-being of individuals within this country and reduce the burden of mental diseases in Ghana.
So what role we can...
so I've been talking about the fact that we have been discussing the fact that mental health is not just one thing that suddenly comes out of the blue, but it's actually an interaction between individual factors, biological factors, social factors, and all that, including communal factors. These all come and play a role in an individual either developing or not developing mental illness. So what role can we as medical doctors, one, what role can we as members of civil society organizations, the government, what role can we play in reducing the burden of mental illnesses in Ghana?
Okay. So in order for us to help to reduce the burden of mental illnesses,
right,
this education you are doing now on Ɔdadeɛ Radio, thumbs up to Ɔdadeɛ Radio for
right,
even thinking about mental health illness, mental illnesses, because not a lot of people think about it.
Right.
And anytime mental illness comes up, they associate it to spirituality.
Right.
So this education is very important so that family members, people in community,
right,
would identify people
right,
when they have mental illnesses and bring them to the appropriate quarters. Because the first person that they usually contact is the community. And where the community takes them, the pathway to care, where the community takes them, is what will determine if their morbidity is going to be reduced or their morbidity is going to increase and lead to mortality.
Right.
So that is very, very important. And I would also want other healthcare professionals who see some of these cases to immediately refer,
right,
because it's a specialized area. And as such, people have gone to school painstakingly,
right,
spent sleepless nights to learn the trade and act of what? Curing mental illnesses.
Right.
So why would you want us to just be sitting in our homes and not to do anything about it? Then 2, 3, to the government, mental health is still under-resourced.
Right.
It is important that the government helps to expand the psychiatric units in the various regional hospitals, employing more psychiatric nurses, more psychiatric doctors,
right,
and more people, and also to give us the money. Right now, as I'm talking to you now, in the constitution of this country, mental health care is supposed to be free.
Right.
But if you go to Panta, if you go to a psychiatric hospital now, they will charge you. And the charges are so difficult that even me as a medical doctor, if my family member is sick right now and I'm supposed to pay such fees, I will not be able to pay such fees.
Which is a major hindrance.
Which is a major hindrance to people seeking care, because they come and they cannot pay for the services. But the facilities also need to run.
Yeah.
Because the facilities do not run on stones.
Right.
They need money to run the facilities. And so I would entreat on government to ensure that and implement and make sure that they provide enough subsidies, enough resources in terms of finances to the various mental health hospitals and facilities.
Right. Yes, to the government, mental health care is still under-resourced and it's very important. We had hoped and were wishing that mental health would continue to be free as it's been stipulated in the Constitution. Unfortunately, that is not the case. So we want to encourage the government, civil society organizations, to try as much as possible to put in place the measures that would help these institutions be able to function properly. Right? Okay. I want Dr. Zusong to give us his final word, especially his advice to the medical students. But since we have Master Tyrone in the studios with us, he's obviously someone future Ɔdadeɛ, and there are people who are future Ɔdadeɛs are always ready to contribute to any conversation and to contribute to any society, right? So I want to know, you may still be young, but what's your take on psychiatry? Do you have any contribution to the discussion?
It's a really interesting topic,
right?
And I would like to take it into consideration for what I would like to pursue in life.
Right. So that is it from Master Tyrone. Master Tyrone says that it is a very interesting area. It's a place where a lot of people are going through a lot. And he has seen what they are going through. He has seen what his father is doing. He want to go in that same line, hopefully someday, to continue to help reduce the burden of psychiatric illnesses and mental illnesses in the Ghanaian space and the world for that matter. Dr. E. Azusong, you are part of the Brella team in Notre Dame. You're obviously a great student in high school. Some of our students are listening to you. What message do you have for them?
The message I have for all senior high school children is rest not.
Rest not.
Rest not.
Right.
And when I say rest not, I know they do understand what I am saying.
Right.
Yes, rest not.
So rest not, if I'm not mistaken, that is the motto of Katanga, right?
Yeah, that's the motto of Katanga.
Rest not. You've heard it from Dr. E. Azusong. Rest not. Put in all the effort towards your academics, towards your spiritual life, towards every aspect of life that you know is important in this journey of life, and things will come out great. All too soon, I think we'll have to close the lid on today's discussion of Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters. We have been talking about mental health as a priority for men's health. And if you are taking nothing at all out of this discussion, it is that mental health affects physical health. And for all the hypertension, the diabetes, the erectile dysfunction, you should know that mental health plays a role in the pathogenesis and in the causing of these illnesses. So we want to say a very big thank you from the entire crew. We want to say a very big thank you to Dr. E.A. Azusong and his son, Master Tyrone, for gracing this occasion, for educating us, for informing and enlightening us as we do here on Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters. So from the entire crew of Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters, from my very self, from my boss, Ɔdadeɛ Dr. Prince Samuel Nyoma, from our executive producers, Mr. Eddie Kofi, Mr. Adofending, from our technical producers, Mr. Otu and Mr. Ɔdadeɛ. I want to say thank you so much to the entire viewers and listenership of Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters. This program wouldn't have been possible without you tuning in to listen to us. We'll come same time again next week to discuss even some more. Stay and stick with us. There's more coming on Ɔdadeɛ Health Matters. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye.
You'll find there's no need